Okay, here we go. Now, I hope everyone can hear me. And I see four people are watching now. That's great. So if you're just joined the live session here on YouTube, if you can hear me, just type something. Just say hi in the chat box. That'll be really great. Okay. So hi everyone, it's Becky here, and welcome to my holidays live session here on my YouTube channel, Becky's Sketchbook. And today is Tuesday, December the 16th, and yeah, it's another cold, rainy day here in Vancouver during the rain season. And yeah, so today for this live session, I'll be starting with like a very quick sketchbook tour of my current sketchbook, and it's from like a newborn sketchbook company called Lanchetti. And then I will be demonstrating like a quick little sketch of a cup of hot chocolate and peppermint candy canes beside it on a small sheet of watercolor paper. And this live session will last for about an hour and a half, not too long, okay? And okay, now I'm gonna check the chat box right now. I see four people are watching. Cool. So if you just joined, just say hi in the chat box, and you can also type about where you're from in the world. And someone is saying hi, and you're from Michigan. Yeah, that's good to hear. A lot of followers and subscribers are from the United States and also elsewhere in the world as well. There's like a great international group. Cool. Okay. Now, let me connect my phone. Okay, so I need to connect my phone to this Zoom meeting. Yeah, I'm broadcasting on Zoom. So I'm just gonna connect my phone to Zoom so you can see my demonstration. I'm gonna click on my email. And okay, now we're gonna pin this. Click pin right there. Okay, now 12 people are watching now. That's great. I'm gonna quickly check the chat box before I get started on the sketchbook tour. And yeah, I see people are saying, sure, he is from South Africa. Welcome. Yeah. And we also have someone from the Netherlands, wonderful place in the world, and Beverly from Switzerland. Wow, a lot of European countries right now. That's great. Okay, so I think I'm gonna get started on the sketchbook tour right now. Before further ado, feel free to type any comments or questions. If you're typing questions, please type in all capital letters so I can see your questions among all of those comments. So this is my current sketchbook, and it's very heavyweight. The paper pound, I think, is more than 300 pounds of this mixed media paper. And the brand is from Lanchetti. And I've been sharing the Instagram account of this Lanchetti sketchbook company on my Instagram account these days whenever I'm posting like a new post of my sketchbook pages. So this is like the very first page spread. And the specialty about this sketchbook is that it's almost like stitch free. Okay, so you can go across the like the border of the two pages, this boundary line with ease without without any skipping of your paint or your pens drawing through this area. It's very smooth going through the spine area. And next pages. And these days, I've been wrapping up my in-person kids art classes that I teach in my home studio. So yeah, very busy body these days. So I just spend a little bit of time going out, most of the time going to my neighborhood cafe to do these, smaller and chill cafe sketches. And every time I sketch the same point of view, I always capture like a different person. Yep. It's very hard to see, the same person sitting on the same spot again. So yeah, these are from mid-November. And I started this sketchbook, I think on the 11th day of November this year, sketching my fur baby Dudu laying on the couch. And another neighborhood cafe sketch over here. And sketching this cathedral seen from a lovely cafe in downtown Vancouver. This is the Holy Rosary Cathedral in downtown Vancouver. And sketching the last few autumn leaves that I picked up in my neighborhood before they all got cleaned away by the gardeners. And again, my fur baby Dudu laying down, on the couch. And he gets a really beautiful rainbow blanket. And the overcast sky outside my window. Some more cozy at-home sketches. So even overcast days, they're not boring. I can always see, lively grays in an overcast or rainy day sky. There's no absolute dead grays in the world. And also sketching this head barista at my neighborhood cafe. I think he's probably like the manager at my neighborhood cafe. Very active, always engaging with customers. Next page spread. This one is kind of like a little panorama at one of my favorite cafes in Vancouver, the Craft Cafe in New Westminster, by the quayside of Fraser River. One of my favorite places to go to year-round. And I did a class with the December intermediate class on Sunday. Okay, so some more at-home sketches. The Christmas cactus blooming in our kitchen, half moon rising, right after sunset outside my bedroom window. Another cafe sketch was, fancy Christmas ornaments. This is the Take 5 Cafe in Sapperton, New Westminster. Another neighborhood cafe sketch, on another gloomy, rainy day. And then sketching some grocery shopping items and this little window view of the view outside my kitchen window. And then the day got brighter the next day. The sun came out for a little bit after the rain. Likely some snow geese passing by the sky outside my window. Right over here. I'll move it this way. Snow geese, they're just lovely birds. And sketching at my neighborhood cafe again, capturing the back view of a man. And I can always sense, back views of man could be like, a philosopher's view, because you don't know their identity, and the way they're sitting, with their backs facing you is kind of like they're in deep contemplation of life. Okay, so I like sketching back views of people, and when they turn around, their faces often look very different compared to what I had imagined. So it's always like a nice experience. Sketching back views after all grocery shopping items again that I sketched yesterday morning. And then yesterday afternoon on Monday, the midpoint of December, I walked to my neighborhood cafe again, which is about 10 minutes walk from my house, and captured this man with this really cool cowboy's hat, chatting with his buddy, sitting on the other side. And the sunset sky, at the end of a very windy day here on the West Coast. Okay, so that's very much it. I think I'm halfway through the sketchbook. As you can see, the paper is super heavyweight. I think it's at least 300 pounds of mixed media paper, and it works pretty well, for pen and watercolors. Now, I just want to check the chat box before I move on again. And yeah, we do have, a few people from the Netherlands, which is great. So good evening to those of you in Europe, including the Netherlands. Welcome to my live session. Cool. And also people from Arkansas, from Scotland. Wow, nice, beautiful places that I really want to travel to one day. And yeah, I have about 18 people watching. Now let's get started on the demonstration of a cozy cup of hot chocolate in a Santa cup. So I'm going to show you, for following along, which that you don't have to keep up with the same pace as my demonstration, okay? I'll be demonstrating pretty fast compared to my usual beginners and intermediate classes. So if you're not able to keep up with the same pace, that's okay. You'll still just use the recording to finish up your sketch of the cup of hot chocolate. So basically you will need like a waterproof fine liner pen. I'm using the Sailor's Fude fountain pen. Okay, so yeah, first of all, you will need a waterproof fine liner pen. I'm using the Sailor's Fude fountain pen that you know from my YouTube videos. So after fine lining, I'll be painting with watercolors using my 2 Holbein water brushes. And I'll be using this Art Toolkit mini palette that I received as a gift from this company. And inside here is filled with Daniel Smith's brand watercolors. So I think that's basically all we need to have to create our everyday sketches. Okay, all you need is just a sketchbook, a waterproof drawing pen, 2 travel watercolor brushes, and a little palette to go with you. Now let's get started. So for the demonstration, I'll be doing that on a separate sheet of watercolor paper, not in my sketchbook, because it doesn't lay 100% flat. Okay, so I'll be using another high quality watercolor paper from Fluid 100 series. And the size is 6 inches by 8 inches. And because this demonstration will last for just 1 hour long, okay? And this this demonstration is very suitable for beginners. We're just gonna be sketching a cup of hot chocolate, okay? With some candy canes and cinnamon sticks around. So you don't have to work too big. 6 inches by 8 inches. Paper is good enough. And I'm using cold press texture. And it's 100% cotton from Fluid 100 series with this nice little painting from Charles Reed. And now I just want to insert the link to the reference photo to you so you can download and then use that as a reference. You don't have to copy exactly what I do in this demonstration, but I would like to invite you to use the reference photo. So I'm just copy and pasting the link. Reference photo is on Dropbox. Okay, so I just typed the link in the chat box. So you can click on the link and download the reference photo if you're following along. Okay, cool. Yeah, so welcome to the live session, everyone. I'm gonna move my lamp a little bit. Let's straighten. Yeah, nice and perfect. Okay, now I also want to show you the look of the reference photo. It's very inspiring and it's beginner friendly. And this one, and I just inserted link in the chat box if you just joined. Okay, so I think I'm gonna pop it up in front of me. Right over here. So for people who are watching, please click on the link because I'm not able to fit this big iPad into this demonstration screen. Okay, So click on the link that I just posted so you can see the reference photo to keep track of what I'm doing. Okay, great. Now let's get started. So I think I'll be spending about, let's see, 20 minutes or so to draw. Okay, I'll be drawing more slowly compared to how I draw by myself every day without having an audience. So what I want to do is to start with the big opening of the Santa cup. So I like this point of view, and you can see, the full stack of marshmallows and the whipped cream right there above the hot cocoa. So I want to start with the opening of the Santa cup. And I want to draw it a little bit bigger compared to the reference photo. Okay, so I want to start with the back curve of the opening. Yeah, it's close to a circle, but not exactly perfect. Okay, so now this cup is actually a specialty one, yeah, with uneven surface here on the outside. So now I'm just going to add this. I think this is the white fluffy brim of Santa's hat. Right over here. And it's bulging, yeah, a little bit. So now I'm ready to get like the rest of the contour outline in. So the body of the cup is actually a little bit foreshortened because we're seeing this cup almost from the top view, okay? Kind of like standing up from the table and looking at the cup, not sitting down and, with our eye level, looking at it, eye to eye with Santa. I'm gonna finish the other side. Yeah, most cups are symmetrical. So I'm gonna do the lovely facial features for Santa a little bit later. So for drawing anything, it's good to get these big shapes in first before detailing. Now I want to get the handle drawn. This is actually a very strong, sturdy handle. I think it starts right over here. I think this is part of Santa's hat. Yeah, with a white fluffy bow here on the bottom of the handle. This is the very outside contour outline of the handle. Now I want to add on the inside. So what I see here on top. Now, starting here, there's no strong outline. But I can see this line still continuing toward the bottom, forming the thickness of the slab of the handle. Now I want to add one more line because I see a negative space, kind of like a triangle, or maybe like a quarter of a circle, where you can put your fingers through to hold your cup. And then I want to add one more faint little line over here to suggest the thickness of the handle here. All right, and I think that's all of the big necessary shapes for a cup. Okay, so now I think we're ready to move on to the medium and smaller details. Okay, if you just joined the live session, the reference photo is on Dropbox, and I just inserted a link in the chat box. Just click on the link, you will see the reference photo in the chat box. Now I'm ready to define this foamy area. As you can see, my line is a little bit shaky and uneven to show the foam feel. Yeah, right over here. And then here I'm going to skip a little bit because there's a little pink marshmallow in the way. And we'll continue towards the right. Okay, now it's time to have fun. Getting as many marshmallows in as possible. You don't have to capture every single marshmallow. It's okay if you miss one or two because nobody's gonna, look at the reference photo. You're just gonna show your art, yeah, to the world. You can't see reference photos, artists use at art galleries, right? Nope. Now we're ready to get this first marshmallow here because it's in the out part of the contour outline of the brim. And each of these marshmallows is kind of like a little puffy cylinder. As you can see, this pink one over here, yeah, very obvious, a little cylinder. Right beside it, here's another one, another pink one laying down underneath it. And now let's keep spreading these marshmallows in relationship to one another. Beside this pink one, I see a like a green one, pastel green. Okay, another one here, and right beside it, there's another pink one. So don't worry if you run out of space. You can just omit some. And here I see one likely like a white little marshmallow. For most of these marshmallows, I'm adding one more little stroke inside the shape to show it's a little cylinder. Okay, so I'm gonna keep building it up. Oh, this one is obviously a cylinder. I can see the circular bottom. And I want to just add two more, two pink ones side by side. And this one laying right over here. I think we have about 3 or 4 marshmallows here. This one is just close to a perfect top view. Okay, I'm gonna insert one more. I think there are just 2 colors, a pastel pink and a pastel green. So yesterday I was, buying some marshmallows at my local, local grocery store. Most of the marshmallows are like sold out. There are only like a couple packs left on the shelf at my local grocery store. Okay, I think that's pretty much all the marshmallows I want to capture, a bit of overlapping. And then I want to suggest, the mushy whipped cream a little bit around the marshmallows. Using these super gentle pressured wavy lines. So these, like this pile of whipped cream is sinking down more and more into the hot cocoa. And then I'm starting to add these graphic details. This is the red area of Santa's hat. Same for here. And I just want to draw the face of Santa, wrapping around by the white beard and mustache. I think it starts right over here. Okay, this is the shape that I see for Santa's face. And then his big nose, right in the middle. As you can see, my contour outline for the face and other facial features, the line pressure, so the hand pressure pushing on the pen is lighter, generating these lighter lines. When I'm drawing, I like to keep the very solid contour outlines heavier. Details, including these, graphic on the surface, more gently defined compared to the contour outlines. And then the 2 eyes of Santa. each side of the nose. Pink cheeks. I think for the pink cheeks, I'm going to use like a bloom of pink on top of the skin color using watercolor. So no drawing for the pink cheeks. Now I want to define the white mustache using even more gentle lines. It's a very soft curve. Okay, it's a bit of fluffy feel for the mustache. And then I'm ready to define the white beard. And then Santa's robe is being very foreshortened visually because we're looking at this cup almost from the top. The white beard is taking over a pretty big ratio. Okay, so suggesting the strands. And then the very bottom of the cup is white, like the fluffy furry area on the robe. I can see the 2 black buttons. Okay, and then I want to add maybe a bit of shine for the cheekbone area. And then next, I think I'm ready to draw these 2 candy canes. Right over here in front of the Santa cup. And I think I'll draw the nice little bundle of cinnamon sticks as well. Again, you can see this reference photo by clicking on the link in the chat box that I shared. So I'm ready to draw the candy cane that's laying on top. So I'm gonna do it right over here, starting with the curve of the little cane. Okay, I'm gonna finish the other side's contour outline. Again, it's kind of like a bent, skinny cylinder for candy cane. So most candy canes are like peppermint flavor, right? And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of peppermint. So I would love it if they could, make candy canes in milk and strawberry flavor, because I'm not a big fan of peppermint. Okay, so here and here I'm suggesting this is a 3D shape of a cylinder. I'm going to do the stripes a little bit later. So after I finish the drawing, I'm going to check the comments and questions in the chat box. Now ready to draw the other one underneath this first one. Okay, this is the intersection of the 2 candy canes, and this one is bending this way. Yeah, so when drawing anything from still life to urban sketching, it's always a good idea to draw the thing that's laying on top or standing in the front row first, okay? Yeah. Yeah, so that's the 2 candy canes, big shapes now, and I add the cylindrical 3D shape for the second one, and then it's time to use much more gentle hand pressure to do the stripes. Yeah, this one goes like this, being twisted a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm adding some extra stripes compared to the actual reference photo, and that's okay. The point of sketching from real life is just to capture the rhythm, not necessarily all the details or the patterns exactly the same. Yeah, I think there's a twisting this way. I think this one has like thinner red stripes compared to the first one. Yeah, I think that's all the stripes now. I want to do a bit of accentuation. You see here, there's like a shadow for the candy cane here on the laying on the bottom, on its left. So the contour outline here on the left is looking heavier because there's a shadow underneath it. And I'm going to do the same thing for the top candy cane. And I believe the window is on the right. The shadows are on the left. Also feel, yeah, a little bit heavier over here, just partially. And I'm going to do the same thing for the cup as well. So it has more weight laying down on something. Now, I'm going to move on to draw the little bundle of cinnamon, which is really cute, right over here, okay? Let's do that. Again, if you're finding the pace to be a bit too fast for you, you can just feel free to draw as much as you're able to, and use the video. I think the video will be automatically on my YouTube channel after the live session ends, so you don't have to wait. Now, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Yeah, it's a good idea. Always a good idea to zoom in to see the smaller details in your reference photo. Now, already, you can move this a little bit if you want to, okay? Yeah. So you know what? I think I want to start with the little string first, and then draw the cinnamon sticks later because the string is on top of the cinnamon sticks. So I'm gonna do that now. At the same time, I'm defining like the sides of the cinnamon pile. This is the tied up area. The loop of the bow, and the other loop over here. Yeah, just like a butterfly. And then these two dangling pieces over here. Okay, just a quick, very quick casual tie of a string. And then I'm ready to draw the bottom half of the loop around the sticks. So from this, perspective, we can see about, let's see, 4 or 5 cinnamon sticks. So I get these two in here in the middle of the pile. So tomorrow I'll be doing another live session for about 1 hour and 30 minutes, doing a scenery. A winter scenery with snow, yeah, very likely. So tomorrow at the same time. Okay, so that's two sticks right over here, and then I see one more on the bottom. There's likely maybe a couple more here. Okay, and then again, these cinnamon sticks are in the shape of cylinders as well. So a lot of echoing shapes. The cinnamon sticks, the marshmallows, and the candy canes. And the cup itself as well, yeah. Different types of cylinders. So in our big world, there are about just 3 big groups of shapes. Cubes and rectangular prisms, that's group number 1. Group number 2, cylinders. Group 3, spheres. So in the whole big world, everything that we see is made up of the combination of these 3 group of shapes. Okay, trees and bushes, they're very spherical for most of them. Some trees are like, like cones, and cones, I would say they belong to the family of cylinders. And I also want to add these black stripes on the string holding the cinnamon sticks. Yeah, they're fun to add on. And stripes of different color combinations, I think is likely the most common pattern on everyday design, everyday object design. Okay, and I feel like it's good to add on these red stars and this little red snowflake to add a good sense of balance. Yeah, there's something on the top and bottom, but I think the left and right is kind of empty. So the composition of this photo is actually pretty nice. And I want to just follow it instead of deleting too many things. So I'm going to add this, the first red star over here. So head, 2 arms, and the 2 legs for the star. The middle is hollowed out, so a smaller star. And it's good to have, a bit of something going beyond your paper or sketchbook page for a sense of drama. You don't have to fit, everything perfectly inside your paper or sketchbook page. This part is dramatic because the stars are seemingly, flying in and out of the paper. Yeah, the accentuation on the left side. Because the window, the light source, is on the right. Okay, and I also want to add, I think the snowflake, or maybe another star. For snowflake, maybe a little tricky for beginners to draw that quite complicated shape. So I think I'm going to do just another star over here. Yeah, and this little leg over here is overlapping with the handle of the cup. So as artists, we always have the permission to change things up a little bit, working with reference photos or even real life. Move things around or even delete. Okay, now this part looks better. So the sense of balance with this little picture is very nice. And I also want to do the pattern for this blanket. There is like a white star, and I want to paint the background likely blue instead of gray. Yeah, there's one more star over here and this smaller one hanging above center visually, but it's actually on the bottom. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the drawing process. And now I'm gonna take a little break by checking the comment section on here on YouTube. And Devon is saying, I use the same gooseneck of my for my phone that you have. I only say that because I just recently discovered it. Oh, I see. So unfortunately, we're not able to buy that white gooseneck tripod or the phone clamp on Amazon anymore because that brand from Avon Tree, they don't sell the gooseneck phone clamp anymore. And I see Jackie, yeah, saying hi from the online class. Yeah, good to see you here, Jackie. Yeah. This is actually live. And someone is saying, yeah, Ty the bonsai guy saying, I don't like peppermint either. Interesting. Yeah. Not everyone is a big fan of peppermint, right? Even though it seems very popular in the big world. Now, I think I'm gonna lower down the tripod a little bit. It's time for watercolor painting, which will take another like 30 minutes in this demonstration. So feel free to take a bit longer after the live session ends. This is actually the real live stream right now, not a replay, okay? So for watercolor painting, as I mentioned in the beginning of the live session, I'll be using my Holbein brand water brushes, or you can use like travel watercolor brushes from any brand. I think the best ones are from Derwent. Another one is from Carrot Take. Try not to use water brushes from Sakura or Pentel. You know, those two brands, you know, from Sakura and Pentel, they're not the highest quality of water brushes, and a lot of people are having frustration working with those. So try Derwent or Carrot Take. And I'll be using Daniel Smith's watercolors inside this little art toolkit mini palette. Now let's get started. I'm gonna put this little palette right beside. I think there's a squirrel scurrying by. Yeah, right outside my window. And there's another drenching wet rainy day here in Vancouver. Okay, I'm gonna move it a little bit upwards over here. Okay, so I think I'm gonna just get the all of those yellow colors first. You may not be able to see yellow, but I do see the muted yellow glow on the whipped cream and also on Centosphere. I don't think it's glaring white or paper white. I think the only paper white area is the very small shines on the ceramic surface. For example, here on the handle. Okay, so white, whipped cream, milk, and butter, they're not really paper white. It's actually a very light diluted yellow ochre. So that's how I see and translate it into watercolors. So I'll be mixing in this bigger palette because it's just easier. So I'm gonna grab some yellow ochre, which is almost running out. But there's still a lot of pigment actually from high quality watercolor paint. So I'll grab some yellow ochre and dilute it a lot with water. And stain the whipped cream area with this creamy yellow. Yeah, in between the marshmallows over here. So at the same time, suggesting some hot cocoa seeping through the whipped cream. And I also want to just continue to use this very diluted yellow ochre to glaze on the white areas on the cup. This is the same idea for snow. If you're looking at the color of the snow on a sunny day, except for those glaring white areas, other parts of the snow could be very light yellow, the color reflected from the sunshine. Other parts of the snow could be shaded in blue or purplish grays. Okay, so it's like a nice seasonal project. When I'm doing my online classes, I have to keep my lesson topics always seasonal. So right now in winter, we're painting some snowy sceneries, nighttime sceneries with festive lights. Look at these white areas, a bit underpainted, because I always believe there's no true white in the world except for those glaring highlights on plastic or metallic surfaces and other glossy surfaces. Okay. And also just want to give like a quick underpainting for the cinnamon sticks using this yellow ochre, a little less diluted, kind of like a base color for cinnamon before the brown. Yeah. Okay, so then my next step is to get these pink and reds on these pretty much everything, yeah, except for the cinnamon. So first of all, I want to just start painting the color that's before red, which is the peachy color for the skin. And I'm going to do that by mixing orange with permanent red. And you're going to dilute this red orange with a lot of water to get a color that's pretty close to skin color. I'm going to leave like a little white spot on Santa's notes over here to show the shine of the glossy surface. Same for the cheekbone area. Yeah, there's a little streak of shine right here. So again, this is how you can get like a skin color very quickly by mixing just orange and permanent red together. The key is to dilute the color with a lot of water. So I'm gonna let it dry off a little bit before giving, some pink cheeks to Santa. Now, I feel like painting these little pink marshmallows. Since the pinks are looking really pastel, I'm gonna use permanent rose and dilute it with a lot of water to achieve like a pastel color look. So again, in general, if you dilute any color with a lot of water, you're gonna achieve like a pastel kind of color without actually using pastel paints. I get these ones in. And then these two, yeah, side by side, they're pink. And I think the other ones are pastel green. Here we have one more pink one. And I think I can do the pastel green marshmallows right now. So what we can do is to simply grab a cold green from the palette just to keep it simple. So I'm using Hooker's green here and dilute it with a lot of water. And your green would be looking really, really pale, like chalk. Again, there are actually two kinds of pastels in the art world. One is chalk pastel, which is like the chalk that we use in the old days. And the other pastel, I think, is oil pastel. And it works very differently from chalk pastel. Okay, so here I just use simply using pure color Hooker's green straight from my palette, and I diluted with a lot of water to achieve this pastel green town. And in the watercolor world, you don't have to use white to get very light tints of any color. Okay, simply mix a lot of water. For example, red, if you mix a lot of water into red, you get pink. You don't have to mix white into red. Now, I think this marshmallow here, floating on top, I want it to be the pink one. Okay, so that's the marshmallow areas. And now I want to use my medium tip water brush to suggest, the sense of hot chocolate or cocoa. There's just a very little bit. So you see here, I have a lot of leftover browns here in my palette. So that's why most artists, they don't clean their palette. They can just simply grab a bit of leftover color, especially when they're fixing like a small area. When they just only need a teeny tiny little bit, okay? It saves a lot of time from mixing from scratch. So I'm just using this leftover brown, which is I think is burnt sienna, with a little bit of permanent violet mixed in there. So here, along the brim of the opening, I'm going to suggest this hot chocolate underneath. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush a little bit. And I also want to add a bit of brown shade in between these marshmallows. And I see there's likely cinnamon powder, okay? Very concentrated over here. And now my next step is to block in the first layer for these red areas. And the red areas will be shaded using red purple. Okay, in the next step. So I think I'm gonna switch back to my large tip water brush. I'm gonna grab some permanent red and mix it with a little bit of permanent rose. I think I want to start painting the handle first. So right over here, I see a bit of white glare. I'm cleaning my brush on the towel. And this area that's looking shinier is a lighter tone of red. And I'm going to reload my brush with more concentrated red pigment after that brighter area. Watch out over here, the very bottom of the handle is actually the white fluffy ball of Santa's hat. And then the inside of the handle is actually very shaded. So just want to give it like a first layer of natural color first before shading it. Okay, I think it'll be really cool to leave like a white streak over there to emphasize the shiny surface. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for the rest of the red areas. The red hat. I know this side is very shaded. I'm gonna do the shading red in the next step. Wrapping around the hot chocolate. Now I want to switch to my medium tip water brush because I do want to leave a bit of highlight on the brim here on the right. Just holding the brush perpendicular to the paper. I'm kind of sandwiching a white streak in between the two little brush marks of red. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to my large water brush and paint Santa's robe. Okay, at the same time, I also just want to fill in the red stars, just using pure permanent red. Yeah, they're actually very easy and satisfying, just a flat wash. Oh, permanent red, and then there's one more little foam star. Actually, I changed the snowflake into this star. That's easier for beginners to draw. Okay, so I like these red stars, add a good sense of balance with all the reds on the cup. And then I think I'm gonna switch to my medium tip water brush to do the red stripes on the candy canes. So since the candy cane is something glossy, and also because there's like a plastic wrapping on the outside, is some part of it is there could be a bit of highlight. Okay. Same for here. The pattern is very simple: red and white, red and white. So when I'm painting these red stripes, sometimes I'm just leaving a little streak of paper white sandwiched in between two brush marks to suggest the shine of the glossy candy and also the plastic wrapping. Yeah, I'm gonna continue to get the other red areas in. Don't forget to reload your brush, otherwise you're working with like a diluted version of red if you keep just dragging your brush on and on. Yeah, so again, I'll be doing another live session sketching a winter scenery tomorrow at the same time. Okay. So yeah, you're welcome to hop on whenever you get the time, or just watch the recording. Okay, so that's the red areas. And then for the next step, I'll be shading the whole two candy canes with a bit of blue violet kind of gray. Because I see the bottom side of this candy cane is grayish. The right side facing the window is close to white. And now I'm gonna clean my brush just a little bit and just use the leftover residue of red on the brush tip to give Santa a bit of red cheeks on the left and on the right. Clean my brush a little bit more on the towel and just gently rub on the hard line. So the bowl shapes, sorry, the circular shape are looking a little bit fuzzy. Not two solid circles. And we're gonna check on, let's see, this part of Santa's hat is also red with white highlights. Okay, and the next step is to paint the cinnamon. I see the cinnamon is a little bit of yellow brown. So I'm gonna mix yellow ochre in higher concentrations. I'm gonna rub on the pigment a bit more. and mix a bit of burnt sienna with it. That's the first move, painting the cinnamon sticks. It's supposed to be like. Okay, so very rich in color because the color is not over diluted. A lot of people are, experiencing frustration because they over dilute the paint with too much water. At the same time, not too little water either. Okay, yeah. And then I'm gonna rub on the burnt sienna. So partially the cinnamon sticks are close to pure brown, especially on the bottom half of these little cylinders. They're also giving like a little cast shadow on one another. If you want to have higher contrast, you can have like a shade of brown by mixing imperial purple, which is very similar to permanent violet, into burnt sienna. Okay, just a little bit. The darkest shade is always very minimal on any object. So no overshading. The yellow brown is still the most dominant color or tone. Okay, so now I feel like painting the background. The background is looking too blank. So instead of painting it gray, I'm going to use like a mix of blue and violet to paint the background. And then I'm going to do the shadow for everything on top of the almost dried background colors. So I think I'm going to use cobalt blue. Yeah, just a really cool winter sky color. Since I'm using my large tip water brush and this cold pressed paper is not too rough, it's not necessary to wet the area with clear water first. If you're using like a large juicy brush, you can just apply a large wash without much friction. Yeah, you can just take it easy by just using pure cobalt blue. For this star here, I'm gonna leave it white, following the reference photo. Okay, and I just kind of changed my mind. So the artist process of creating something is always more about improvisation. That means you can always change your mind as you go. You don't have to plan everything perfectly and just follow it in a strict way. So now I want to paint the higher part of the background using green instead of purple. Because purple is a color that's too close to red. And I want to have higher contrast. So now about halfway through, I'm going to gradually stop using the cobalt blue and get ready for the green. Okay, so I'm going to stop applying the cobalt blue anymore. And I want to use spring green. Mixed with a little bit of hooker's green. And I want to start from the top. And then so it's going to be a soft merge with the blue. if you start applying the green right on top of the blue, you may get like a strange overlapping marks. Okay, gonna kind of drag it into the blue, which is still wet. So it's like a nice soft merge of the two colors. I can even drag the green a little bit into and kind of mix it. And you could end up with like a turquoise color before it's fully going into the blue. And that's the fun process of using watercolors. You can always blend and create new colors right on paper. You don't have to get every single color ready in your palette. Yeah, and inside these hollowed areas of the stars. Yeah, so I'm kind of a little bit blending with the blue for the transition area. Okay, so the cup is kind of glowing with a bit of magic power with help of green. And then I want to shape the Santa's white beard area, especially on the left. As I mentioned before, the window is on the right. So the left side of the white beard and the white fluffy hat's brim is shaded. So for shading something gray or painting plastic or metallic surfaces, I like to use the mix of cobalt blue with imperial purple and also a little bit of green. So you get a lively gray rather than mixing water into black. Yeah, so I'm gonna start painting the white beard, white mustache areas by skipping around a little bit. Starting with actually a fairly light tint of gray. And I'm gonna reload my brush with a bit more lightly gray. For the very left side, I see a bit of darker gray shade. Wrapping around the mustache. And so a little bit heavier here on the very left. So there are actually two levels of grays. Breathing like a soft gradient. Now I want it to be consistent. You see the red areas, they're not shaded. So the gray and the red areas are not really connected with one another. Now I really feel like shading the red with a little bit of cobalt blue mixed in there. Especially for the left of the brim. And then gradually I can see, yeah, the shade fades off into close to true red. I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom left, Santa's robe. Make sure you charge your brush with pretty concentrated purple, okay? If your purple is too watery, you're not doing much work shading the red areas. Make sure it's not way too diluted. And I'll have like a higher ratio of cobalt blue for the very left. Same thing for the inside of the handle. Yeah, I think I forgot to paint this area of the handle. So I'm gonna just use some pure red to fill it in. And this part of the brim is a little bit too bright. Same for the very bottom of the cup. Okay, and I think the shadow of the cup could be a little bit bigger compared to what it shows in the photo. I think it's something wrapping around the left side of the cup here on the bottom. So for shadow colors, for like a universal shadow color for like everything that we paint, I like to simply mix cobalt blue with imperial purple, maybe a little bit of green. And I want to start with like a fairly light gray. This is not the darkest yet. To kind of draw the shadow and just fill the inside with this medium light gray. And it's fade up into the blue, which is good. And I don't want like a hard outline for the shadow. Now I'm mixing more blue violet. Now using my medium tip water brush, so the shadow tone is usually the heaviest, wrapping around the solid outline of pretty much all objects. Okay, so nice and heavy. I'm gonna do the same thing for the stars. And also the candy canes. Okay, it's always super satisfying adding on the shadows. Even for like flat shapes like leaves, everything in the world has a little shadow at least to push it, forward. And I want to add a shadow for the star that pops up from the background, but not these white ones. I think those are just prints on the background. Now for the cinnamon sticks, of course, yeah, there is a shadow. I'm gonna start with my large tip water brush, so it's easier to control it to like a lighter gray. Okay, let's start with a fairly light, with a medium light gray. And again, the shadow tone is usually the heaviest, touching, yeah, the contour outline of any object. And I'm going to use a bit of leftover gray to shape the string a little bit. I'm going to continue to use this blue violet, dilute it a little bit. So it's a very faint gray to shade the candy canes, okay? Again, the window is on the right, so the left side of this candy cane is shaded. Same for this one over here. I feel like the bottom And so a little bit of the top left is shaded. And then for these white stars, I'm going to give them a bit of light gray. And I also want to shade Santa's face, okay, a little bit with blue violet. Blue violet, from my experience, kind of like a universal color to be glazed on almost anything. Yeah, for shading. Including the cheek for Santa, even just a little bit. Okay, it shows. It is shaded. And now, let me have a look. It's time, I think, to add some final retouches before I call it done. And I think I want to make these red stars slightly more shaded. Just by adding a glaze, which is like a very transparent red-purple. Cobalt blue mixed with permanent red. And I just want to make the shadow for the candy cane even heavier, wrapping around the contour outline. Yeah, same for the cup. Okay, again, I think this is like a really easy project to kill some time on these restful days of winter vacation for many people. I think, yeah, that's pretty much it for this little quick demo. Now, you know what? I think I want to shade these little marshmallows a little bit with a very faint blue violet left over here in my palette. Yeah, I think these cylinders can be shaded a little bit with blue violet. Just about 50% or less. Again, if shadows, especially the darkest shadows, are more than 50%, your thing could be too overshaded, unless it's a backlighting condition, okay? So backlighting conditions, I would say there's always more than 50% of shade. Okay, yeah, so these are truly more like, cylinder shapes. Just about 50% or less of shading on like regular daytime, regular lighting conditions with the light source coming from the left or the right, not from the back. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for today's quick demo. Now, let me check the comment section. Somebody's asking what brand of journal I'm using. I actually got this as a gift from this newborn sketchbook company called Lanchetti. So it spells like lunch, Lunchetti, Lanchetti. And their logo is like a butterfly. And I share their Instagram account on my like everyday Instagram postings. If you go to my Instagram account, click on my most recent post, I tag them like all the time. It's Lanchetti with this butterfly logo. Okay, and you can see the paper weight. I think is more than 300 pounds. Very, very heavy weight. And yeah, of course, I do support this company because the quality of the sketchbook is very high. Okay, yeah, and maybe a bit pricey because of the perfect bounding of the sketchbook, just like a real book. And also the quality of the paper as well. Maybe a bit pricey, but I think for me it's worth it if you want to elevate your sketching experience. Now I want to put it away. So before we go, I want to show you what we have been doing in these online classes that's ongoing for like 4 years, live on Zoom every Saturday and Sunday. So on Saturdays, I teach the beginner's class. On Sundays, I teach the intermediate class. Now I'm just going to move it aside over here. Yeah, it's time for a bit of self-promotion, and I really appreciate all your participation in today's live session. And in the end, yeah, just like most, artists and teachers, they got to self-promote their stuff. Okay, so this one was done just 2 days ago, was my Sunday intermediate sketching class, and this was a challenge. And I challenge everyone to finish sketching this along with me in like 1 hour, 15 minutes or so. And it was super fun. It's the, again, it's based on a free photo from unsplash.com. And it's free for commercial use, including, teaching, and also for making posters from them. Again, this one was a really fun project that we just did in the Sunday intermediate class. This one, let me turn around. This one was done in last month's, the November's beginner sketching class. And yeah, so we always start with like a quick pencil draft showing the conceptual understanding of this house is a rectangular prism shape, right? And it's made up of many other flat shapes like triangles, trapezoids. And yeah, this took about 2.5 hours for the beginners class to draw and paint. And most people, amazingly, they were able to follow along pretty well, almost finish it by the end of the 2 hour, 30-minute live session on Saturday, on a Saturday in November. And this one was done on, I think, in October or November's beginner sketching class, painting a sunset sky somewhere, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This bird sketch of a cardinal was painted on the first Saturday of December, just 2 weeks ago. Okay, and people had a lot of fun painting this together, learning how to depict the shapes of snow piles and shape the snow with pine needles sticking out of the snow piles. And the cardinal, yeah, is super handsome and adorable. And I will be teaching like a bird sketching class in January for 4 weeks. So every week we'll be sketching one little bird for about 1.5 to 2 hours together. So you can check that out on my Ko-Fi website. Or Ko-fi. I think it's more like Ko-Fi. Yeah. Okay, another bird sketch that I did was my beginner's class. So these bird sketches are very beginner friendly and they're super inspiring. And this one was done, I think, in one of the classes in November, beginners, on Saturday. And I do have like a big file folder, holding most of the beginners sketching projects that I did in 2025. Let's go through some of them because there are actually too many. Okay, so sunflowers from the beginners class on Saturdays that we did in, I think, October. Yeah. And this one had the date on it. And we did this together in the Saturday class on October the 25th this year. Sketching Quincy, the little felt mouse, with 3 wee pumpkins that I bought from my local grocery store. Again, these beginners project, it typically takes about 2.5 hours. Slowly taught by me from a blank sheet of paper to pencil drafting, fine lining, and then watercolors. The whole process for each of these takes about 2.5 hours for the beginner's level. Okay. Another beginner's project. I think this is from October or November this year. This is from November. So we sketch different subject matters, more than just landscapes and food and drinks. Today I'm doing food and drinks, but I haven't done food and drinks for like a long time in these online classes. And okay, sketching my fist, okay, and my favorite watch on my wrist, the Snoopy watch. And we did that, I think, in the first lesson of beginner's class in November. Let's have a look at the next one over here. I'm gonna keep looking at the time. Okay, it's almost 10:30. No problem. So this one is Fort Langley. Okay, something from October, I think. Still life sketch from September 27th for the beginners class. And the peaches from Ontario. There's something I bought when I lived in Montreal in August. Okay, yeah. For the beginners class, most of these are from the beginners classes. This one is actually for the intermediate class. The clouds are a little bit challenging, a bit complicated clouds, a bit challenging for beginners. So I did this with the August intermediate sketching class on Sundays. Yeah, the famous Beatrice bagel from Montreal, and I did this in August when I was on my Montreal vacation with the beginners class. This one as well, yeah, the beginners class back in August. The St. Louis Square, this little coffee house that I did with the beginners class, okay, which is like actually a really fun challenge. Beautiful foliage greens at St. Louis Square. So all of these photos, I think most of the photo references are from my photo collection on my everyday wanderings and travels in the country, mostly in Vancouver, sometimes in other cities when I'm traveling. Okay, this is the old port, the bridge and the clock tower at Old Port in Montreal that I did with the beginners class in August. This one is the Lake Garibaldi on top of Mount Garibaldi that I did, I think, in July or August with the beginners class, and we took almost two sessions, about 3.5 hours to finish this. Okay, another one like a little trial that I did on my own because it takes a bit more planning to do this lesson with beginners. Another beginner's lesson, from the summertime, cherries. Yeah, another exciting beginner's lesson, I think from earlier this year, maybe May or June. The honey bear. Okay, studying the transparency of liquid honey through a plastic bottle, and it's very classical. And again, if you're interested in developing your ink and watercolor sketching skills, especially your knowledge in watercolors, you can consider signing up for my beginners sketching class. If you already have some skills and you want to have more fun, I'll show you some intermediate lesson samples in a couple minutes. So for the beginners. Earlier this year, in January, I think, yeah, a house in East Vancouver, a photo I took on my wanderings after like a cafe session. White Rock Beach was Mount Baker. Again, this is done from my photos. You'll get one of a kind photos that you can't find elsewhere. Okay, to sketch along. Peaches. I think this is from 2024. Strawberries that I did, I think this year in June or July. For the beginner's guide, this is like kind of a small challenge, but there are some tricks to make these strawberries look alive. Okay. Beginner's class of a little urban sketch. I think it's from 2024, not this year. Sometimes we do like a figure sketch in the beginner's class. Okay. I'm finding man with glasses and beard and mustache to be much easier to sketch compared to a bald man. Without hats or beard or mustache. Okay, this is easier for beginners to tackle. Yeah, another beginner's class that we did in the springtime, April. Yeah, March or April. Again, most of these reference photos are from my own photo collection. Sometimes I do use free photos from Unsplash. Sushi, yeah, from my one of our dinner treats in February. Totem pole at Queen's Park. A peony blooming in my backyard. I think we did this in the intermediate class for just 1 hour, half a session. Okay, so these ones. Most of these are from the beginners class. Now, let me show you some intermediate examples, which are a little bit more advanced. And the sizes are bigger as well, and they're in this whole big file folder. As you can see, yeah, this is accumulated over the past 1 year or two. It's very heavy now. Let me take some of them out. I probably don't have enough time to show all of them. maybe about 1/3 of the pile. I'm gonna remove our little sketch from today. This is this is the Pumpkin Patch Farm, located on West Ham Island in the suburban area of Vancouver, that I did was my intermediate class. Let's see, in November, I think in early November, yeah. And it took us about 1.5 sessions to do, which is about 3.5 hours to draw from scratch based on my own photo. Yeah, this series of little sketches, kind of like designing a sketchbook page, was done with my, I think October or November intermediate sketching class this year. Yeah, the cherry pie and a cup of coffee was done with my intermediate sketching class this summer, I think in June or July. Can't remember. Okay. The autumn colors in my neighborhood, done with my Sunday intermediate sketching class. Flower bouquet, yay. Yeah, this one was done, I think in July, was my Sunday intermediate sketching class. So I'll be hosting more classes on flower bouquets in 2026. If you're interested in any of these particular little topics, like flower bouquets, winter landscapes, spring landscapes, just let me know in the comment section so I can plan for those classes. Or even do a few live sessions of easier images, okay? Cafe Myra, cafe somewhere in East Vancouver that I did in January. I remember that. It's like the first project in January 2025 this year with the intermediate sketching class. So in January, February, March in the intermediate class, upcoming, we'll be sketching, yeah, quite a few cafe sketches. Similar to this, okay? There are a lot of beautiful cafes in Vancouver. This one was done, I think, in June in the Sunday intermediate class. A church somewhere in East Vancouver with people, cyclists, and pedestrians. Yeah, the Rose Garden at Queen's Park. Again, most of these are based on my own photos that you can't find elsewhere, okay? So these projects, I think we can say, yeah, one of a kind that you can't find elsewhere online. Let me just keep track of the time. Okay, this one is the Latner Key, part of the Fraser River in the suburban area in Vancouver. Some Montreal sketches, peach wine from Montreal and Montreal City Hall. I think this one was done with the beginners class almost 2 years ago. Foliage in downtown Vancouver and some heritage buildings with the intermediate class in the spring this year. A corner at Steveston Village in Richmond. And I actually did this with the beginners class it was actually a fun challenge. We actually were able to finish in one session for 2.5 hours with the beginners. This is the Minaru Chapel in Richmond. Okay, surrounded by beautiful greens in spring, late spring. Yeah. A rainy day in Vancouver that I did in January or February this year. The view outside Elysian Coffee. There's actually another beginner's lesson on sketching the water pennywort plant. Sketching people in Vancouver's skyline earlier this year. I think this is from like 2 years ago. I'll go over it. Yeah, so I will be hosting another Doodoo sketching class in January. You can check it out on my Ko-Fi or Ko-fi website. Cafe sketch that we did last December. Gastown, Vancouver. Yeah, so these images they were done in the intermediate class on Sundays, including this one, beautiful. But this one I think is more challenging than usual in the intermediate class. Sometimes I like to push people a bit further, learning perspective in their intermediate class. Yeah, it was a challenging but still a fun one to do. Downtown Vancouver, a heritage building illuminated in the afternoon sunshine. Gastown, Vancouver, right outside Waterfront SkyTrain station on a beautiful sunny day. And yeah, Moby Dick buildings. This one is actually a restaurant selling fries, fish and chips, right? Fish and chips. Okay, in White Rock. Yeah, a beach in Vancouver. The other side is Sunset Beach. So that's all the examples I need to show. I don't want to keep this live session for too long, okay? So yeah, I just want to show you the sense of, my classes, the differences between the beginners and intermediates. And now, just want to just put these back into the screen. Okay, now let's check the comment section. Any questions or comments? Let me know. I also want to insert the link to my Ko-fi or Coffee website over here. So if you're interested in, having a more consistent sketching habit, I think it's good to take a class with me. And I like to teach these classes a bit more slowly compared to today's live session, especially in the beginner's class. We do like a small project for 2 hours without a rush. Copy and paste. And the name of my pen, I just want to answer all your questions before we say goodbye, okay? The name of my pen is Sailor's brand. Sailor, yeah. You can search for Sailor's Fude fountain pen. I'm going to type it. Sailor's Fude. Oops. Yeah, feel free to drop me any more questions and comments before we go, okay? In the next 5 minutes or so. Fude fountain pen, bamboo green. There's something I want to mention. We are buying these Sailor's Fude fountain pen. You need to get like a separate bottle of ink. Okay, so do not use the ink cartridge that comes with this pen. Those ink cartridges from this pen that you buy, they're not waterproof. So you do need to get like a separate bottle of ink. And check out jetpens.com for Noodler's Brown number 41. Let's type that website too. To buy Noodler's Brown number 41 ink. So do not buy the Noodler's Brown number 41 ink anymore from Amazon, okay? Because it keeps sending you the wrong ink number. That's not waterproof. Okay, still just scrolling up and down to see your questions and comments. And I think Jackie's saying, how do you know if you fall into beginners or intermediate? That's a good question, okay? So if we're not really drawing like every day, and if you feel like you just have like very basic skills in drawing watercolors, then I think it would fit into the beginners class. For intermediate, we do like very broad vistas of urban sketches, with a higher sense of perspective and a lot more details. Okay, so it really depends. Some people with a bit of experience, they still like to take the beginners class because they don't want to spend too much time detailing those intermediate projects. And these beginners class, I don't think they're super easy. I don't think they're very suitable for absolute beginners. I used to teach some absolute beginners class, like 4 years ago when I first started. Yeah, didn't got a lot of interest because people they want more excitement. Okay, instead of absolute beginner skills like how to draw circles, how to draw squares, how to shade in black and white. I feel like those are a bit less interesting. So for my beginners class, it's not super duper easy. I would say it's all level friendly. Okay, even if you have some experience in drawing watercolors, you could still try the beginners class because it's slower paced. I won't overwhelm you with, too much details. For the intermediate class, let's have a look. If you're able to finish something like this in 2.5 hours, sketching along with somebody like me, yeah, I think the intermediate sketching class is more suitable. It has quite a bit of details. If you're able to handle all the details, like the energy level, yeah, that you need in the intermediate class, not necessarily more difficult, but more time consuming, more details, more colors to use in the intermediate class. Okay, just feel it, see if you're more comfortable. This one took about one class as well, maybe a little less than one class for this project in the intermediate. Sometimes it's a little bit easier or a little bit harder in the intermediate. Okay, and let me see other comments or questions before we go. Okay. So what brand of watercolors I'm using these days? I'm using Daniel Smith's watercolors, and it's a very famous brand. I'm just gonna type it. Daniel Smith's watercolors. And I do have my favorite 12 colors from Daniel Smith that I can introduce to you tomorrow in tomorrow's live session. Okay? Yeah. And I think there's no more questions. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna call today's session the end. I'm gonna quit my demonstration first.